Hi, welcome to the Revive, Thrive, and Optimize podcast. I'm Billy Weiss, compounding pharmacist and health and wellness expert. I'm certainly glad you're here today, as I am that my co-host Janet and behind the scenes producer Mike. Good morning.
Good morning, Billy. Good morning, Mike. I am ready to learn how to revive, thrive, and optimize my life and level up a little bit, especially right now. It's the holiday season. I don't know when this podcast will come out, but we're right around the holidays and we're creeping up on 2025. So it's a great time to jump in, start listening to these podcasts, asking questions. And so Billy asked me, Janet, what are we going to talk about today? And we don't discuss what we're wearing, even though we're both back in black this morning, and we don't talk about what the topic's going to be,
right?
Which kind of makes it interesting. And this one's hard. So I think it's the elephant in the room, and I would like to talk about all things alcohol this morning.
Okay, let's do it.
So I have been on your program for about 9 years. And I follow it pretty closely, pretty strict. As a lifestyle, I don't feel deprived or anything. I actually feel better. I get to eat more. I don't get hungry. I don't get hangry. And over the last 18 months, I've had the most incredible results. But prior to 18 months ago, I was still drinking alcohol. And for the past 18 months, I've had the best results ever without the alcohol. So I know that that's made a difference, but it has not been easy. And I would just like to share a little bit about my experience around deciding not to drink alcohol, as well as my experience around all the ways I could cheat and try to keep it in, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Tell us a little bit about what alcohol does to our bodies. Is it really poison? Should there be warning labels, things like that?
Yeah. So, Janet, let's talk about first that to do the Opti program, you don't have to stop drinking. Everything is about education, right? And being the CEO of your own health.
Good point.
Making your own decisions. Yeah. However, I do think that you're a great example of if you decide to completely abstain from alcohol, that your results will be better. And it's not just your results in the Opti program that'll be better, Janet, but I think it's your results for long-term optimal health and wellness to revive, thrive, and optimize will definitely be improved. And I think that the studies and the research that's out there is more than clear. You pointed something out to me that I didn't even know this morning when we were just working on what we're going to talk about for 5 minutes. That in certain countries they actually put cancer warnings on alcohol. I didn't know that.
Ireland, can you believe it? Ireland's known for their drinking and for Guinness, of course. And now I believe that what I've recently read is every beverage has to have a cancer warning label on it, just as cigarettes do.
Right. Okay. See, I didn't know that. I mean, I know that alcohol. You said, what does it do to our body? So we'll start with the fact that it is a poison. And the body has to metabolize that poison. So when we drink any alcohol, it's converted to acetaldehyde, which is a toxic.
Acetaldehyde,
which is a poison. And acetaldehyde is known to increase rates of cancers. That can be breast, colon, colorectal, pancreatic. I mean, there's lots of cancers that are, I would say probably every cancer could be increased by it because it creates a poison in our body. And it creates reactive oxygen species. It creates inflammation. But one of the things that I think about that I think is the most relevant to when we talk about alcohol is how it disrupts sleep. And so when people don't sleep well, we don't produce melatonin as well. We don't repair our systems. We don't clean up those reactive oxygen species. We don't get rid of inflammation as efficiently. And we know that melatonin, our sleep hormone, is a major antioxidant against cancers. A lot of diseases, but specifically cancers. And so a lot of people will say they use maybe wine or beer to sleep. And yeah, it does, again, like an Ambien type drug. I think that it does knock you out, but you're not asleep like getting your quality REM restorative sleep. And so when I think of the cancer connection I think of sleep interruption. I think
Mm-hmm.
of increasing poison in the body. And more importantly, that poison is only metabolized and out of the body by using up our glutathione.
Glutathione,
And you've heard me
yeah.
talk about this. And
The
a lot of
major
people,
antioxidant.
a lot of people have never heard of glutathione. Their doctors never mentioned it to them. Their pharmacist certainly has never mentioned it to them. But glutathione is the major antioxidant made in our body, and it's made in our liver. And glutathione is what is necessary for us to metabolize that poisonous alcohol product out of our body. And
Well,
that's
that
why
was-
it makes us go to the bathroom more, right? It's why
Right.
we pee
And then,
more.
and then we get dehydrated.
Right.
And that's one of the things that I doubled up on over the years was glutathione, because I
Right.
knew I was depleting that,
Right.
but I knew I was also going to keep drinking when I went to a party or an event or something. And I've never been a big drinker. I grew up in a household where my parents didn't drink. Not only did they not drink, but alcohol was not allowed in our house. But when something is not allowed and you're younger, your mind is like, oh, I want to sneak and do
Right.
this, or I want
Right.
to do it because they told me not to do it. And so, in my adult life, I do enjoy having a margarita or going to a party. And right now at Christmas, some of my friends make the best eggnog and, have a toast or have a sip or whatever. But for the most part, for me, I just don't want it anymore.
Yeah. Well, I
And
just
maybe because of the education, like you said, now that I know what's happening to my brain, to my body, the education that's helping me.
Well, Janet, when I think about it and your story of the last, what'd you say, 18 months, I think you said.
Yeah.
So there's so many people that'll tell me, okay, I gave up alcohol and now my results have just skyrocketed, right?
Yeah.
Like they've accelerated.
Yeah.
I've really seen the fat burning. I've really seen the sleep better.
Sleep.
I've really seen the energy.
Recovery.
Yeah, the recovery. So
I feel
just-
better.
it's
I
just-
wake up better.
people have to make a decision. So I got a really good friend who's actually a physical therapist, and he was a Marine, and he's seen some really bad stuff. I mean, in Afghanistan and different places. And he was, I won't say a heavy drinker. It didn't interfere with his job, with his family, but he drank beer every night.
Mm-hmm.
He would come to CrossFit the next morning and complain about how sore he was and how he felt and how he couldn't burn the fat. And I was just like, all right, man, you got to think about what you're doing. And he's a very deep thinker about stuff that we would discuss in the mornings during our workouts about health and wellness, and always asking questions about my program and taking my supplements and trying to eat good food. And I was like, but you're taking in this alcohol, which spikes your blood sugar, which causes your body to turn off all fat burning because you're trying to get rid of the poison first. The body is designed to keep us alive in the moment. And when there's a poison present, it's not worried about burning fat. It's not worried about recovering from CrossFit the day before. It's not worried about cleaning up the virus or the parasite or the bacteria that's attacked us. It's worried about, or the cancer cell that's rogue. It's worried about getting rid of the poison because that's the most urgent need that the body has. And so the research shows that fat burning can be shut down for some people for up to 7 days.
And that was me. I am positive that I might have, a night of drinking on the weekends. And when I realized that then the whole next week I'm working my butt off to burn fat, but I'm not burning any fat, that maybe it's the alcohol on the weekend. And so when I stopped that, I think the fat burning picked up.
Well, and that's one of the things that this guy noticed. He was like, okay, I'm just going to try it and see what happens. And now he says, now he's trimmed down. He recovers better. He feels better. He's faster at his workouts. He's stronger. And he told me, he said, Billy, it's just not worth it for me to drink anymore. And so he, like you, just did it through experience.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not going to do that, and they don't have to do that. They
No,
will
and
benefit.
I don't want to judge anybody
No.
either way.
No.
I judge myself enough.
I mean, Beth and I don't drink, but I don't mind being around
Right.
some people who are drinking,
Right.
as long as they're not rowdy and, like just out of control. That doesn't bother me at all if people want to drink around me.
I can get out of control with or without alcohol.
Yeah. I mean, people probably think that about me a lot. So I don't need alcohol to be out of control. So That's a good point. And so yeah, we choose not to drink, but that doesn't mean that other people can't come and do the Opti program and not drink alcohol. It just means that they probably won't get the same results.
And that you could say the same thing for someone could change all their lifestyle habits and do the program, but maybe they still smoke cigarettes.
Absolutely.
That's their choice. Just like optimally, I think you're going to say eating clean grass-fed beef is optimal, but yet you have vegans and vegetarians that can still do your program. So I think that we also want to bring about that everybody has to make their own decision, and we respect each other's differences and each other's decisions and each other's lifestyles. And I think that I got to the point where I realized I did not feel good drinking and then getting up the next morning and trying to be this yoga teacher and be all spiritual when my brain is foggy. So it's also the spiritual aspect, the relationships with people, and more than anything, I mean, the really big elephant in the room was, could I deal with me? And not having the alcohol in a social situation, it was hard for me to deal with me. And that is what has grown and changed also, and through this education. So setting an example for others, but mostly for my family.
Yeah, and Janet, that's something that I talk a lot about during the summit or when I'm teaching, is that I try to lead by example. So if I teach it and encourage people to do it, I'm already doing it. Now, I tell a lot of people, your average medical professional would not take chemotherapy and radiation, but they'll prescribe it for other people. They probably wouldn't take a statin drug if they have, much knowledge of it at all, but they'll prescribe it for other people. I don't operate that way. The things that I teach in my Opti program are things that I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And there are things that I've been following for a long time, most of them. And so I'm trying to lead by example. And the thing that I like about the Opti program, and whether people choose to follow it fully or partially by drinking or not drinking, smoking or not smoking, they're still going to be better off. 100% they're going to be better off if they follow part of it, some of it. But none of the things that I would ever recommend ever have any side effects. So, in most professions in health can't say that. If they prescribe you a drug, well, there's an average of 398 side effects. If they prescribe you certain therapies and things, right, there can be side effects. But with the things that I'm recommending and that you're doing and, all these people are following, there's only benefit.
Yeah.
Now, you don't have to choose to follow all of it, but there's benefit. And certainly one of the major benefits, and I've seen it over and over, you are a great example. My buddy who's physical therapist is a great example. I've got another couple that were drinking just maybe Friday and Saturday night. And he started telling me, he's like, Billy, after you started going over all the problems with it, I just decided it wasn't worth it to drink a couple beers on Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
And he has had dramatic changes in his body composition, in the way he feels. And he's, again, a lot of people, once they give it up, are like, it's not worth it.
Well, with my husband, he's been my greatest example. He was the first to stop and stick with it and all of that. And I will say there's been a celebration where we've had one drink, or there's been a night where we've had a toast, that sort of thing. But I don't think that he's had an entire drink. And It's helped his inflammation, his pain, his sleep. Now that you're saying all that, it's like, oh, yeah, checking all the boxes.
Yep.
Like these are things that are happening automatically. And I don't know. It's just, it's emotional. It should not be hard to talk about this. And I sometimes feel like, am I offending my friends? And then there's also just ways that if people want to keep drinking, there's certain things they can do, like trying to buy the low sugar or sugar-free alcohols, or the alcohols that don't have the glyphosates, or drink out of a bottle instead of a can, because just the container that your beverage comes in can be hurting you almost as much as the beverage itself, with the plastics, with the cans. Anything that comes in a plastic bottle or a can has some problems.
Well, and we've done episodes on hormones and hormone disruptors or endocrine disrupting chemicals, and they are certainly in
the
many
phthalates
of these containers.
The BPA free. They're saying the BPA has been replaced with another BPF or BPS.
I think it's S.
And that those they're finding are just as bad.
Yeah.
And they're leaching out into the liquid and then of course the phthalates. And I think they both disrupt your hormones.
Right.
So, and then there's also the autoimmune aspect. I'm guessing that, alcohol is going to help keep those autoimmune things turned on.
Well, remember, autoimmunity has an inflammatory component to it. And autoimmunity certainly would have a high reactive oxygen species and a lower glutathione level. So I could definitely make a connection there.
Yeah.
I don't know like a direct, it turns on X autoimmune disease. But I definitely think that it weakens our overall system. And if autoimmunity is an immune problem, a gut issue, then I would think that absolutely alcohol is contributing to the weakened
immune
condition.
System.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's also kind of fun because you can now go, and things are changing. They say that 60% of millennials are now deciding they don't want to drink alcohol. And even though it's $1 billion industry, they're changing a little bit. You can go to a wine store or you can go to a beverage store and you can find beer that looks just like beer in a can, but it's just water. And so you'll go to a party and it looks like you're drinking a beer, but it's just water. Yeah. Or, they're marketing things differently, or they're trying to make non-alcoholic drinks at a bar where you can go and you can get a mocktail. And that's becoming more and more popular. And so, if you don't want to tell somebody you're not drinking, you can get a mocktail and you don't have to bring up the subject.
Well, Janet, one of the things that I was talking to my friend Mark about with this is I just don't know when or how it evolved into such a, I'll call it, quote, normal day-to-day part of society.
Yeah.
And, it's just something that I've never done, and just for religious and health reasons, just choose that it's not worth it to me. But it's just become such a part of society. But I just don't even think about, like, do people care if I'm drinking or not? I just don't care.
I'm getting past that. But that's been really hard.
If they care,
that's been really hard.
I don't care if they do what they choose to do. Again, as long as they're not being abusive or something, I don't mind. They can do what they want. I just feel like if we could understand and be educated on it, which is what we're trying to do with this, which is why you said let's do this morning when we got here, is that people sometimes will then decide, well, let's just try it and see. And I think even if they reduce the amount of alcohol that they consume, that's a win. Any win is a win, right?
Yes,
any victory is a victory.
Just reduce it, yeah.
But we have to remember that one drink is considered 5 ounces of wine or 12 ounces of beer or 1.5 ounces of a hard liquor. And so it doesn't take much to turn on all these, we'll call it negative consequences when it comes to our health. So, and I hear this a lot. That's why I bring it up, especially from women, is, well, I just drink a couple glasses of wine at night. Well, you're greatly increasing your risk of breast cancer, colorectal cancer, pancreatic cancer. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. It just means you should know.
What about your brain?
Well, you're definitely affecting your brain. No question that it causes what we call brain fog, is the way I like to talk about it. It interrupts the sleep, which causes more brain fog and more soreness and more inflammation, and just kind of the snowball going down the hill again. There's just those issues.
And I think there's always, I mean, in the beginning, it's like, I'm only going to drink on the holidays. Well, you got Christmas, New Year's, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Memorial Day weekend, boom, 4th of July. I mean, it's like there's always something around the corner, or there's a party at somebody's house. And so you have to sort of navigate or maybe plan a little bit around that. And, and you said once you have the education and then it gives you a reason to make that plan or to have a dialogue about it. But it's not been easy, but the reward has been so worth it.
Yeah. And look, a lot of things are not easy in life, right? I mean,
right.
Getting up every morning when it's dark and going to work out is not easy.
Not easy.
But that's what we do. That's what I do.
Change is hard.
Change is hard. But one thing you talk about, Janet, is people say, well, I'm just going to drink at this occasion or that occasion. And that's certainly fine. The issue with that is that it's addictive.
Yeah.
And so
dopamine, you take one drink and that dopamine goes.
So it's harder to do that than to either just say, I'm not going to do it, I think, for people, because it does create those addictive aspects in our brain, and it turns on the fact that we would want more and we would want to do it again. No different than sugar, though.
Yeah.
So it's not a judgment thing. It's just
I was getting ready to say
when the chemicals in the brain change, it turns on that addictive behavior. No different than cigarettes. No different than people being addicted to gambling or whatever.
So my struggle is not alcohol right now, and has never really been alcohol. My struggle has always been the sugar. And so when I went to a big holiday party this week and there was lots of alcohol flowing and everybody's around the alcohol, not me. I found the dessert table and I went and had all the desserts. And I just was like a crazy sugar person, and I literally ate all the desserts. And so I'm sure people are judging me for that. Well, look at her with the Health and Wellness podcast. She says don't eat sugar, and she's literally over there eating all the sugar. And I didn't beat myself up about it. And the next day, actually, I didn't crave it again, and it was done, and I was able to move on. And so I'm really that's getting better, a lot better.
And look, Janet, there's none of us that are perfect.
Yeah, of course.
So the fact that you went and ate some sugar is not the end of the world.
No, I ate all the sugar.
But I think you said a really key thing is that it didn't cause you the next day to have more dessert.
Well, I wasn't craving it the next day because now my body's flexible and I can go from a sugar burner to a fat burner. And maybe I can do that easily because I'm not also drinking the alcohol if I'm at a party eating the sugar.
Well, and I was just thinking when you said that, it was just Beth just had her birthday. And we had a piece of cake that night.
Was she now 25?
Yeah, looks 26.
25. Yeah.
So the family came over, the kids came over, the grandkids came over, and we had a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's not that you have to be
so strict.
Like the people think that it's some
fun.
Crazy thing. It's not. It's just a lifestyle, and it's a habit, and it's a
choice.
It's a choice. It's an educated choice is what it is. And so I think so many people are just totally uneducated to it and just haven't ever really thought it through. It doesn't mean it'll change the way they think about it, but at least they have made an informed decision. And I think as adults, that's what we should make, is informed decisions, whether it's taking the shot they tell me to take, whether it's taking the drug that they prescribe.
Whether it's the shot or the shot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, or drinking the alcohol or eating the sugar. I think taking the supplements. It's all informed decisions. And so if we educate ourselves well, just like you said, you think that part of the reason that you have done so well with it is just the education. You understand what the negative ramifications of it are. And so that makes it easier for you to say, okay, I'm just not going to do this anymore.
And I want to walk that walk. And honestly, for my friends and family that are listening, the first year of this was really difficult because I constantly felt I had to separate myself from the gang, right?
Yeah.
And I felt different, and I felt like I wasn't fun or, myself. And then over the next 6 or 8 months, they don't care what I'm doing. Right. I realize, they're not focused on me.
Right.
And I'm not judging what they're doing. It's about me being comfortable in a social setting.
Yeah.
And so that's what I personally am working on. I can stand up in front of a big group of people and teach yoga all day, But it's very hard for me to go to a party or to a bar or a club and socialize. I'm very uncomfortable. So that's really more the journey for me is how to get comfortable with who I am.
Well, and Janet, you talk about that, but if you're going to be up in front of people teaching a yoga class saying, I suggest you don't drink alcohol, and they see you out drinking alcohol, right?
And that's
and you were mentioning earlier how you see that in some so-called people who are teaching health is then they're out drinking or doing things that we would not consider healthy, which is fine, but it does not set a good example. It would be like me teaching my kids not to drink, but them seeing me drink. I mean, it just wouldn't, right? They would
or
go,
smoke
or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I just use
or cuss,
right.
all that, whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah. So for anyone who is thinking about stopping drinking or wants to stop drinking, I'd love to share more. There's a lot of websites that I'm hooked into and apps and things that kind of help with that. And, or just do it differently. I don't know. It's been a hard
Janet,
one.
One of the things that can really help is to be on the program, to be on the supplement so that you feel better, you have the energy, you feel like exercising. And all those things can
dopamine.
trigger the dopamine, optimizing, I should say, your hormones, especially your testosterone, triggers the dopamine response naturally. So there are ways to get that, I hate to use this word, but that so-called high, right? You hear the runner's high or the exercise high. There are ways to do that with hormones, supplements, exercise.
Music, dance, art.
There's lots of ways to get there. So it doesn't have to be, I give up the dopamine. It just has to be maybe a substitute way of doing it that is more beneficial to our overall health.
Well, it's funny because so many people that wanted to do your program and they're like, nope, I can't because I can't stop the alcohol. I am trying to say to them, you can do whatever you want, right? But now a lot of these people are also listening to all these other big health gurus and doctors that are online and biohackers and they're all saying the same thing. I think you were just saying it a lot earlier, but now they're all saying, no alcohol.
Well, Janet, the research is overwhelming.
Yeah.
So if they're really going to teach health, I think it has to be a subject again because it is so common today.
Well, here's what's common is you get up in the morning and you get in your sauna and then you do your exercising and then you eat right all day and you drink all your water and you hydrate and you try to sleep and then maybe you get in your cold plunge and you do all these things and then you pour poison into your body.
Yeah.
So, you're working so hard to get healthy and then you're just drowning it out with poison.
But remember, I'd rather them be doing that and putting in the poison than not doing that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So just keep that in mind.
So the balance.
But the good news is that people can make their choice and they can drink or not drink and they can still be on the Opti program either way.
And no judgment.
And they can have benefits. And I don't judge people who,
I love how you don't judge. You just tell it like it is. And then you're like, here, do your thing. Here's the information.
Here's what I do. Here's what I recommend. You make your decision.
You do you.
Yeah.
But learn the information so that you can be empowered to be the CEO of your own health and then do you, whatever that is.
Well, again, and I just think if people would think about the examples they're setting too, because while alcohol is not a problem for a lot of people, for some people, and I've had family members who were just abusive and, you just couldn't tolerate what they were doing when they would drink. And I don't know what turns that on for people, but, for some people it can turn on some bad things. So anyway, I think people are better off if they can avoid it or minimize it.
Minimize it, yeah.
But and
watch if you're drinking the alcohol, watch what you're mixing it with, because that can be worse than the alcohol.
Yeah.
If you're just dumping sugar and soft drinks and stuff into your alcohol. All right, cool.
Hopefully that helps.
All right, thank you.
All right, see ya. Bye.